Turn that
Right.
light around. No, you can turn it off so it doesn't have a.
Right. I mean, we're also going to record the meeting normal on Zoom, but at the moment, always have to try the YouTube part first to make sure it's working. And hi, Steve, how are you?
Hey, Laura.
Long time no see, but I'm still not seeing you.
I know.
And we had someone on the meeting. Oh, here, and that person's coming back now. So anyway, are you guys are here, right, Chris? Because that looks like you're
sitting in our living room here.
We just
Yes.
drove back over Tioga Pass in San Francisco and back down 101 today.
Yeah, no, it looks like the backdrop looks like your house.
Brown.
Anyway, so we'll probably not start. I mean, it'll be the usual, not really starting until 7:05. But after that, we're going to have to, like, there's 3 big items on this agenda, so we're going to have to be careful on time. And John, if he's joining us, won't join until after the first item because he is recused. Hi, Dan. And I haven't seen you in a long time either.
Been hiding.
Well, we've all been hiding.
Yeah. No, it's good to be here. How have things been for you?
Well, 2.5 years of Zoom. I mean, I've learned how to use it. I kind of actually like it.
Yeah.
As it turns out, I feel people complain that it's very, very techy, and to do it right, I guess it is. But I also feel there's circumstances like this where we're seeing each other that is more high touch than high tech. So I've actually enjoyed it, but I know a lot of people have not.
It's interesting. I enjoy the convenience because I'm not sure how many meetings I would physically be able to be present, but
Right.
I think the more it goes on, it makes me crave being around people again, which before I feel like I didn't always love people.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, that's right. I mean, the longer this pandemic, it's like people invite me to places and I really weigh it much more carefully.
Yeah.
So
Good and bad.
good and bad, yes. Good and bad. I mean, maybe being more selective is good,
Yeah. Edit it all out.
right? So
All the people that don't like are diseased.
yeah. So on Friday, I'm going to an in-person event at Caltech to honor a long dead person named Grant Venerable, who was the first African American to graduate from Caltech.
Oh, cool.
And turned out he lived in West Adams on Budlong. So I'm involved with some other people not trying to nominate it for the house, for a landmark. But what they're doing at Caltech is renaming a building for him that had been named for the famous bad, if I'm pronouncing this right, eugenist. Anyway, bad person. A bad person. So his name's coming off the building and Venerable's name is going on it. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it's an outdoor event. So I know there's when I say I weigh what I would be willing to do and that I'm willing to do. Okay. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, Laura. How are you?
I am fine. So I think everybody's getting a message as you join that we're being live on YouTube.
Yes.
I don't know that anybody is watching live on YouTube, but we are live on YouTube, and I will be starting a Zoom recording shortly. So we'll be recorded double. And so, hi, Jonathan. I'm Laura. Okay, so we have our first presenters are here. All right, it's 7:01, and I do think I'm going to wait another minute or two, but our first presenting team is present, so we can probably get going very shortly. Karen, are you presenting? So I should make you a co-host?
Yes, please, because I'll be sharing my screen. Thank you.
Try that again. Karen, could you speak again? Oh, there, I found you. Never mind. Don't.
Hi, you got me.
Okay, they'll keep talking.
Hi, everybody. So nice to meet you all.
Okay. Now, because it turns out in Zoom, one of the tech tricks is finding the person you're trying to make into a co-host.
Oh, I'm
And
definitely.
every time you, if you talk, you move suddenly in a different place in the list. Okay. 7:02. So since our first team is present and we have a lot of people here, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:02, and I'm going to start the Zoom recording. So I hope you all saw a little note that came across your screen. And I was going to do live, but I'm not seeing it.
It says that we are streaming live.
No, I meant live transcript. I'm not seeing it as available. Thank you, Teresa. Well, we won't have a live transcript from this meeting. And Teresa, Donna's calling me. Can you call her and see if she needs the Zoom link? And if so, give it to her, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyway, my name is Laura Myers, and I am UNNC's co-chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee. And this is a meeting of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee. So I'd like to share the screen with our agenda. And let me know, please, if you can see the screen. Yes. Well,
Yeah,
so far,
now we can.
I'm not getting a message saying you can see the screen.
We
So
can see the screen.
okay, cool. So meetings called to order at 7:04 rather than 7:02. I've posted the agenda on the screen, and 4 people have entered waiting room. And I'd like to draw your attention to item number 1, which is the determination to continue to hold meetings virtually. The Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, or BONC, and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment have established that BONC does have the authority to adopt AB 361 findings on behalf of the city's neighborhood councils, and to determine that due to the COVID-19 state of emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees. And this meeting is being held virtually pursuant to that directive. And I would again like to welcome everybody. I've called the meeting to order already. A quick review of UNNC's rules for committee stakeholder voting participation. So basically, in our standing rules, we only appoint chairs and co-chairs of committees, and otherwise any stakeholder is a member of a committee on the night they're participating in the committee. So they can make motions, they obviously can participate in the discussion, and they can vote. A stakeholder is defined as someone who lives, works, owns property, attends school, and attends church. And in addition to that, someone who participates in a community organization which does have an actual building address within our boundaries, and which does and the organization itself participates in the activities of the community, basically. So we do not have a voting item tonight. So, well, we do actually on the CPIOs, which probably we're not voting. So at the time of any vote, I will ask that you affirm your stakeholder status. And on the agenda tonight is 1899 West Jefferson. Second is a presentation and updates regarding the Gramercy Place apartments located on Washington Boulevard in Angeles Vista between Wilton and Gramercy. And a further discussion regarding even more issues related to the administration of character residential overlay districts, AKA HPOZ Light, and other CPIOs. And then follow up to any old business and adjournment. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen at this time. And again, welcome everybody. I'm busily admitting people. There's a lot of people participating in this meeting. So I do want to, for those who are latecomers, indicate that we are both live streaming on YouTube and recording to Zoom, on the cloud for Zoom tonight. And you may use the chat, but please don't use the chat to make comments or ask questions. Please raise your hand to make comments or ask questions. And ideally the virtual hand, which you'll find under reactions. You can go like this if you're having trouble getting your virtual hand raised. And you can use the chat to say, help, I can't raise my hand, will you please call on me? But please don't make comments in the chat. The chat does become a part of a permanent record and will be appended to any minutes that we might produce. And because this is a public meeting, we're not supposed to be really chatting, we're supposed to be participating in the meeting. We have 3 major agenda items. So the first one, I'd like to limit to 45 minutes. And then the second 2 will then each be less than that, but we need to be starting our second agenda item before 8 o'clock. Okay, so that all said, the first item is public comments. These would be comments on anything not on tonight's agenda. So are there any public comments? Teresa.
Thank you, Laura. I just would like everybody to know that the Earthquake Brace and Bolt program is back in action. This year, there are 350 zip codes, and many of the zip codes in our community are available for those who are trying to get a retrofit for their house. This is a program that will reimburse you for up to $3,000 to help you prepare your house for a retrofit and save you during an earthquake. Just like everybody to know, it's back and going up and going again.
Okay, thank you. That's really good to know. Are there any other general public comments? I think Steve, you're just clapping. Okay, so I think then I do want to just go ahead and launch into our first agenda item, and this is a consultation. There's no case number yet, 1899 West Jefferson Boulevard. And this will be a presentation of a project that is proposing 79 units, all of which are studios except the manager's unit in 6 floors. It's 100% affordable housing for formerly homeless persons. And as proposed, the project will have ground floor amenities, quite a bit of bicycle parking, auto parking, only 10 spaces. The building is approximately 50,700 square feet. The city is asking for a highway dedication along Jefferson and possibly an alley dedication in the rear being on the alley. The plans specify the use of native trees and drought tolerant plantings. The project's within the Jefferson Park HPOZ. So just a little side note, when we have land use cases that overlap HPOZ cases, we usually leave the design decision-making to the HPOZ, and what we analyze at UNNC are land use kind of impacts. And it's also my understanding that because of the dedications, it may be that technically the city will start considering the east side of the project. So in other words, the side up against the next commercial building east as the official backyard. So there's going to have to be some negotiation with the city to make the backyard what we would all think is the backyard, which is the alley. Yeah. So it's just a technical, because of the dedications, the side facing west on St. Andrews has become skinnier than the sides going east-west on Jefferson and on the alley. So that, and anyway, I'm sure Karen can explain that better if it's important.
I think you did a great job at explaining that. Thank you.
Right. So Karen, so what I'm hoping is, I know we have you, and then we have the owner, and we may have the partial program administrator, but I really know we have a lot of community participants. So we're trying to collapse collapse your presentation a little so we can make sure we can hear from the community and still be done within 45 minutes.
Sounds great.
So if you'll introduce yourself in the project, and I'm going to turn off my video because I'm getting the usual message to me, your internet is unstable.
Well, I would like to thank the Planning and Zoning Committee for this opportunity to present our, like you said, 100% affordable housing project at 1899 West Jefferson Boulevard. And my name is Karen Felipe, and I will be speaking on behalf of KFA Architecture. KFA is a mid-sized Los Angeles-based firm. We have a history working on affordable multifamily housing dating back to 1988. Housing makes up a majority of the work we do in our office, and of that, about 40% of our projects are affordable. I'm here today with two other members of the team who are equally excited about creating and supporting much needed affordable housing in our great city. The owner, Joe Patel, who will introduce himself in a moment, as well as Reverend Richard Reed, who is with First to Serve and will be the services provider for this project. After that, I'll be back to walk through the design, and I know we're conscious of time. So Joe, the floor is yours to do a brief introduction.
Members of the community, thank you very much. I too am a stakeholder, been around the neighborhood for about 40 plus years, in particular at the corner of Washington and La Brea. I've been last 40 years, I know I've been driving through the Jefferson corridor to go to SC and back again. And my whole life's been based around between downtown and the West Side. I am a father of three beautiful daughters that have also grown up in the neighborhood. I am the proud managing member of a small real estate firm that's committed to creating housing units in our city. I've worked closely in the last 15 years with hotel owners, motel owners, apartment building owners in creating space, accommodating programs with the service providers, in particular folks like the Weingart Center, the Midnight Mission, the family housing people, Pacific Clinics, Hopics, you name it. Wherever we can help, we've done that part of it. So I have a good passion to help in the community if I can. And I enjoy being part of those projects. I've been involved in voucher-based projects. I've been involved in the motel conversion ordinance. And I'm looking forward to this opportunity to see how we can create more housing units for the members of the folks that we need to create them for. I think the site's a good opportunity. And I'm also blessed to have Reverend Reed and his team through First to Serve that we believe will be awesome in running that facility should things work out. So that's a quick, brief background on me right there.
All right, thank you. And then Reverend Reed, are you there? Can you unmute yourself and give a brief introduction as well? Let's see, I see him on. Maybe.
I do see him here, but I think he's on the phone.
All right, well, until he is able to join, maybe Joe, I know you guys have worked together closely for a very long time. You can introduce him and hopefully he can interrupt you and speak a little for himself.
Sure. So, Reverend Reed used to be a member of the First AME Church. He's still part of the First AME Church that we're all familiar with, right by Western and Adams. He currently was part of their housing services and support services programs. And I believe it was Pastor Cecil Murray that sort of gave him the wings to start doing work in the community. And he began with domestic violence programs, substance abuse programs. And slowly through the last 20, 25 years, I don't have the exact number. I know now he operates about 15 facilities throughout the city, houses about 500 to 700 people on a daily basis, and creates wonderful, wonderful pathways to get people back on the road to recovery.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much, Joe, for sharing that. And hopefully we can hear from him
Yeah,
in
I
a
think
minute.
so.
Sorry. All right. Well, with that, thank you so much. Just wanted to share a little bit about our team before we get into the site. I'm going to go ahead and share now our slides, and starting here with the site plan. And when we start to look at a project, we start with the site. And you can see our location here at the corner of St. Andrew's Place and West Jefferson. We're adjacent to both commercial and residential uses, and within the South LA CPIO and Jefferson Park HPOZ. Within the overall site planning, we look to take cues from the existing building footprint, to which we're very similar, but we also wanted to better what was there currently and to adapt the site to the proposed use and be a good neighbor to the community. To help visualize a little better, wanted to share this next slide with what is currently on the site. We're here today since this is your neighborhood, and we're excited overall to hear about your thoughts and observations on what we're proposing. We want to be a good neighbor, and we put a lot of thought into our design, how we can help our residents, and also how we can be a part of this community. I'm going to continue to talk about the site plan, but want to take a little closer look on the ground floor. One improvement you can see here is the addition of a planted buffer to improve the street condition and provide transition from Jefferson. You see on the south, you can see the green area with the trees. We were talking about having native trees. Shade is very important to equity. And also, this landscape buffer is serving a dual purpose of satisfying the likely highway dedication that our neighbor to the east is already following. And we can look at that in more detail as well after the initial walkthrough of the project. Let's also talk about access, both pedestrian and auto. You can see the southwest corner, the triangular plaza, adds another layer to the procession into the building's common spaces and then to the units. For the cars, we have access to parking off the alley. The project is proposing to provide 10 stalls, although there is no required parking and the residents are typically without cars. These are planned to help support the staff that will be working here. The majority of the ground floor is occupied by common space, community room, laundry, offices, bike parking, and auto parking. The manager's unit is also located on this level. You can see at the southeast corner. With the 3 rental units on the ground floor, we are planning to set these back from Jefferson, as well as step them up in elevation. So they're slightly raised from St. Andrew's Place, again, trying to create these layers of transition and buffer to create this like a very nice place to live. I'm going to move up another level. So here you can see the second floor plan. This is the first full residential level. The project is all studios with the exception of the manager unit, and the units are approximately 380 square feet. They contain kitchens and bathrooms, so these are not SROs, they are studio units. On this level, you can also see we have created a protected space for our residents with a community room off of a landscaped roof deck. At the 4th and 6th floors, we have additional landscape roof decks that work together to provide the required open space and comply with the transitional height requirements on the site. Here you see, I'm going to go now to the pretty pictures. So here you see the overall view of the 6-story project from the corner of Jefferson and St. Andrews. Active, transparent ground floor uses line Jefferson, complying with the CPIO. And you can see here a visual of that improved sidewalk condition with the tree planted buffer. And then here's another view from Jefferson. We're using a mix of materials in addition to the ground floor storefront. We're using brick, tile, as well as different plaster colors to further articulate the facade. And finally, from St. Andrews, you can see here the view towards the alley, which would be the parking entrance. You can also see here in this view how those roof decks at the 4th and 6th floors step down the overall massing to the transition to the neighbors to the north. I know it's a lot, that was a quick overview, but just want to make sure we have plenty of time to take any questions and get into any further details. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
This is Reverend Richard Reed.
Oh, hi, welcome.
I was having a little technical difficulties here. So hello, everyone. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties there. So my name is Reverend Richard Reed. I'm the CEO of First to Serve. It's a nonprofit agency that provides a host of service throughout the Los Angeles County, which consists of interim housing, crisis housing, domestic violence, shelter programs, and transitional housing. At those particular sites, we provide clinical case management, life skills, employment services, and we try to get our clients into permanent supportive housing. We take a delight and pride in trying to help those that are in need. And right now, we want to take our services to an even bigger level, and that's to give them housed and secured housing. Somewhere I read in the Bible that in my Father's house, there are many mansions. And in Los Angeles, we can't find one. So if I can do anything to support my community to get folks housed, that's what I'm about. And I love the partnership with Joe. He really cares. He has a heart for the community. He goes and he gives the food, he gives clothing, he does whatever he can. So I'm partnering with him, and we want to make a better difference in our community. And we know we can do it, and we know that we have the community behind us to support us, and we know we can make this right.
Okay, thank you. This is Laura. So it is now 7:23, and we'll need to conclude at 7:53, so 30 minutes more. So I see Dolores has her hand up, so I'm going to ask that everybody, be cognizant that there's 35 people here. So please don't repeat what somebody else said, and let's try and get this done, because it's very hard to be a person to only speak for 1 minute, but in effect, that's what our average time is going to be. So Dolores, then Helen, and then Marina.
Hi, everyone. I would like to know what is going to happen to the current residents at the current facility. And number two, why does this building have to be so high?
So I will ask Reverend Reed to answer the first question. I think you can really speak to that best.
Right. So as we work now, we also have different funding that we have in regards to rapid rehousing that will have them housed at different locations through when the course of being rehabilitation is getting ready to start. So we have people that are already going to be rehoused or relocated. It's not that many, so it's only a couple, so it's not a lot.
Thank you. And then speaking to the second question, here what we're trying to do is provide affordable housing, and there's such a great need. And this, by using the most of our resources, which in Los Angeles is land, being able to go to 6 stories, which is allowed, really helps us to house as many residents as possible. So that's one of the reasons.
But that being so high, doesn't the residents in the residential housing lose some of their privacy because it is so high? Because we have the apartment building that's on the corner of Western and 31st Street. And sometimes those people over there throw stuff down into my neighbor's house that's right next door to it. So even though there is an alley there, they're still throwing stuff over into the yard. So I'm just concerned about the people that live on that corner losing some semblance of their privacy. Why does it have to be so high?
Okay, so Karen, I know your response is that the state law allows it to be so high, but I think that's really also an economic question. I mean, in other words, not everybody builds as high as they can. So is there an answer? Yeah.
Right. So I think that if it's more of an economic question, I would ask Joe if he could respond?
Sure, happy to respond. It is a combination of economics and, more importantly, the need of the community. If we can build as many units allowed, that's the direction we want to go towards. We believe the building's been designed super well by KFA, who have done quite a few of these kinds of projects. That's really incorporated the needs of the community and addressed what they need to address from the aspects that they need to address it. I can't speak to individuals throwing stuff out the building. I just don't see that. But we're very happy with the design as presented right now.
So Dolores, I'm going to move on to Helen. Helen, can you, are you, okay, Helen, I think you're going to have to, I think we need to come back to you. Can you re-log in and we'll come back to you. Marina. Marina.
Karen? Karen?
Yes.
Yes, hello, Karen. If you could kindly share with us the elevation for Jefferson, the south elevation for Jefferson among your slides there.
Is this the one you're looking for?
No, for the street of Jefferson Boulevard, not for the building. It's further down. There we go. There we go. So I'd like to speak in defense of our historic district. A little bit of background. Our community worked for 10 years. I want to repeat that, 10 years to create our Jefferson Park HPOZ. We wanted to preserve this slice of early 20th century Los Angeles. We created our HPOZ with almost unanimous community support. We are proud of our HPOZ, our historic district. We are proud of Jefferson, the streetcar commercial boulevard. That's the heart of our historic district. It is surrounded by nearly 2,000 arts and crafts bungalows, each one different. Our neighborhood has been called the largest collection of arts and crafts bungalows in the country. Our HPOZ is 11 years old, and in that time, we have protected all our buildings from the period of significance, meaning from the early part of the 20th century. No building from the period of significance has been demolished in our historic district. And I would like to note that this building, it's known as a non-contributor, dates from 1912 and 1913. It's a collection of about 3 buildings that at some point were joined into one building. So it is definitely from the period of significance. One of the buildings was built by a noted real estate person known as Bundy. And we're very fortunate to have some of his work in our historic district. He worked primarily in Santa Monica, but he also worked on Jefferson Boulevard. During this time, during these past 10 years, our historic district and our community has flourished. We applaud the desire to help the homeless. That is laudable. Helping the homeless, however, should not come at the expense of our community and our historic district. Karen, could you kindly show us the elevation for Jefferson again, please?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
also giving you a time warning, Marina.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, you don't want to
I'll wrap
see
it up.
not the elevation of the building, just the
No, the
neighborhood.
elevation of Jefferson Boulevard.
Sorry.
There we go. This building that's being proposed is grossly out of scale with our historic district. It's helping the homeless, as I said, should not come at the expense of our historic district and our community. This building causes great harm to our community and destroys the historic character of our HPOZ. This grossly out of scale building being proposed in the heart of our historic commercial corridor, where historically the maximum height is 2 stories, completely and permanently destroys the historic character of our historic commercial district. The developer of this project would also have the distinction of being the first to tear down a building from the period of significance in our historic district, the building that's currently there. The project shows contempt for our community and destroys what we have worked so hard to create here over the past 20-some years. It will be a daily reminder to us that money and power can single-handedly destroy what thousands of us in our community have tried so hard to create. This building speaks disregard for our community and contempt for our historic district. As you can see, this grossly out of scale building is completely out of character with our historic commercial corridor, which is that extent you see of Jefferson Boulevard. Thank you.
So Helen, you want to try it again? And again, we are not, any of us, myself included, keeping to the time parameters I had suggested, and we have a lot of hands raised.
Yeah, I have some questions. So is Joe Patel, the owner, going to retain ownership of the new building? And
Sorry, go ahead.
And who pays for the rent if he is going to keep it and then rent it out? And if it's subsidized, by what program is it subsidized? And then will the Reverend Reed be actually coming to the area, or will he be on site? And how is he affiliated with First to Serve other than being the CEO?
Lots of questions.
Yeah,
Let's go to
thank you,
Joe
Helen.
first and
Yeah,
then the
thanks.
Reverend Reed.
Thank you.
All right, well, I can keep it as simple as I possibly can. Joe Patel is a managing member of the LLC that owns that building right now. Joe Patel will continue in his role as the managing member of the building through the process and through the next levels, as long as I'm there. As far as, what was the other question you had?
What does that mean? Is he going to retain ownership of the building and then rent it to you guys, or what? How's
So
that?
yeah, okay, maybe I'm confused. I'm Joe Patel.
Oh, you are. Okay.
Yeah.
All I can see is this picture of the building. So
Okay.
you'll be keeping ownership of it and renting it to other people, or what? And for how long?
Yeah, so I don't have all those answers right now. This is the beginning process of the entitlement phase to see what we can do with that site.
But what do you usually do with your other buildings? You said you have several.
Yeah, so what we do with the other buildings is once the building is ready for the service provider, we work out a lease agreement with the blessings from the city of LA, whether it's LASA or the DMH people or somebody along those lines, and create a win-win scenario in which we are the building owners, pretty much the real estate portion of it. The service provider is the one that's doing the housing, and their funding is coming from, I guess, the city or the county or the state of California.
Okay. And so what was the other one? And
I think you're asking for Reverend Reed's role.
yeah.
Reverend Reed, if you want to speak to that.
I think Joe just answered it. We're like a service provider for those that need services in regards to other linkage to income, mainstream income, medical, things of that nature, making sure they're okay, doing wellness checks, things of that nature. So we're just a service provider of the building, making sure everything is okay. Just extra support.
Okay. And then what sort of support?
Helen,
Okay,
how many
sorry.
more questions? So sorry, but I've got so many people with raised hands.
Sorry.
Thank you. Audrey. You're muted.
Yeah, Trying to get there. Thank you. I have so many questions. I scarcely know where to start. Mr. Patel, did I understand you that you're planning on leasing the building back to the city?
That's one option, yes.
I see. And for Reverend Reed, are your troops going to be providing active case management to the residents of the building? I mean, what level of case management services are you going to be providing there?
Just level of case management services. If someone needs mental health services, we do have a clinical case manager, so we can work with that issue and doing assessments and things of that nature. So yes, we're providing all kind of case management services.
I have to say that I echo everything that Marina may have said. I don't care that this building conforms to the underlying zoning. 6 stories on this site, on this very narrow street, is just too much. And frankly, I would not put a building of this sort directly across the street from a liquor store. That doesn't seem to me to be a very happy adjacency. Can you tell me what the maximum legal occupancy of these units is going to be? Are there going to be 2 people per unit? How many people are going to be in there? That was a question for either Joe Patel or Karen Philippe.
These are all studio units, but as far as the occupancy allowed or the plan for the residents, Joe, do you want to speak to that?
So, I don't have a number for you, unfortunately. The assumption that we're working with is it's 1 person per unit at this point in time.
Let's see. The neighbors to the north, there's 3 houses on the south side of West 31st Street. I am concerned that those folks are never going to see the sun again, and that their privacy is going to be really destroyed, even if the building is set back as you go higher. And there's all those outdoor patios that are going to overlook them. I don't think they're going to be overly thrilled about that. People talk frequently about the building that's at 4th Avenue and Jefferson as being an outstanding example for architecture, but that's only a 4-story building. It's not 6. On a much more wide area of Jefferson Boulevard. This is a single lane in each direction on this street. It's just too much. If there's supportive housing existing on the site already, something along that scale is obviously more appropriate for this area. And I really have a lot of concern about a high concentration of struggling people who are crammed into a large number of small units. It's grossly out of scale in this area.
Okay, thank you. Lizzie's next and then Dan.
Good evening. Just for full disclosure, I am a board member of the United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council and also a rep for the area of Jefferson Park. However, tonight I am speaking as a resident of West 31st Street, which is right behind Jefferson. So I have a comment and maybe a couple of questions. So for Mr. Reed, how many case workers will you have, or rather, how many clients will each case worker manage or, at one time?
Well, usually the normal rate is 1 per 25, usually for most contracts that we do have. But that can be lower. It depends on if the particular individual wants case management services. So it's all optional. It's not like it's not mandatory. So if they would like case management services.
All right. So 1 per 25.
Yes.
1 case worker per 25 clients. Okay. All right. How many clients are there right now at in the present building?
None.
But at some point there were clients there, correct?
That I know of.
Aren't you leasing the property?
We own the property.
Yes. Aren't you
Leasing it to Reverend Reed, yes.
aren't there people living there right now? Or
Yeah,
there
but-
were?
but they're not considered permanent supportive housing people. They're interim people.
Okay,
people
how
that are-
many people were there?
Again,
I don't-
I'll leave that to Reverend Reed, but that's a moving target number.
Right, it changes, so I don't know the number right off the top of my head right now, but it's not, I don't know the number.
But was it some type of similar kind of supportive housing?
No,
No.
no, it wasn't.
Okay. So the comment that I wanted to make is that we were told at some point that there were people living there, and I believe that we have already within Jefferson Park, we have plenty of low-income housing buildings. There's Path Villa right on the other side of Jefferson Park. And right now, this building, the present building, was at some point, we were told they were housing, I don't know, tenants, clients, and we believed that it was some type of supportive housing. I don't know, but we want to keep the status quo as it is. I believe that we have offered our share of what the community can support, and such a massive building, like everyone else was saying, is just too much for this narrow corridor. Thank you. And also, one last thing, one caseworker per 25 just seems totally out of, I don't know. I'm just shocked that there would be just such a few caseworkers per clients. Thank you.
Okay, Dan, and then followed by G. Lincoln. And again, I'm watching the clock. It's 7:42.
Hi, yeah, I don't want to like rehash everything that's been said, but I do agree that the scaling is out of proportion with this corridor, maybe more appropriate on Western. Agree with Lizzie about our fair share and what we can actually support in this community, which leads me to the questions about the adjacent uses, the liquor store. I don't know if any of you have been around the property, but that section of the block on St. Andrews is constantly with lots of people drinking and potentially drugs. It doesn't seem like a very conducive environment for this type of project. The other thing I just wanted to touch base on is I'm still unclear about the residents that were there, how many of them were more than just one person per unit. And if, I guess my question is, are any of these units meant to house families, or are they only single people, possibly two? I know that you touched base on occupancy, but I'm still unclear of how many people are allowed to be there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you on that one. I mean, that's something that planning and then building and safety and then the final certificate of occupancy will determine as far as the number of maximum people that go through the place. But the intent is to put one per unit.
Okay, but the families that were there before, like how many people overall were housed there before you rapid rehoused them?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you on that, sorry.
Okay, so when we get answers like this from the community, it feels like you're not working with us, especially when we're talking about this is the maximum allowable, the 6 stories is what's part of the law. It doesn't actually reflect you working with Jefferson Park or the UNNC to make sure that this goes within our community. That's all I have to say.
Okay, G. Lincoln.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to make a comment. The homeowners are expected to respect and follow the Jefferson Park HPOZ ordinance. Shouldn't developers have that same obligation? The regulations, which this project appears to be in violation, were clearly articulated in the meeting last evening. There are other buildings that would seem to be suited. For example, there's a building, a huge building at Grand Avenue near 35th, near the DMV downtown, near downtown. The Pico House at Main Street and 4th, and there are others. buildings that are vacant, that are standing, could be converted to homes for the homeless and simultaneously avert currently undesirable appearances rather than demolish a building that is over 100 years old in the community, which is known for its charm and architectural styles. It seems prudent to diligently research alternatives that do adhere to the HPLZ guidelines. This project proposes 79 single units with 10 parking spaces. Clearly an imposition to the neighbors on 31st Street, and I believe that the Jefferson Park community has made significant contribution toward new construction addressing low-income housing in the neighborhood. Currently, there's an apartment building proposed at the nearby area, 31st and Western, just across from the building at 30th and Western from a few years ago. A large apartment building is going up currently on Crenshaw and 30th, and a future project planned for Crenshaw and Jefferson, just to name a few. So there are other buildings that could facilitate this idea. I'm all for helping people that need help and the homeless. But those of us who live here for years, pay property taxes for years, deserve to have our voices and concerns not only heard, but respected. Also, proposing a facility to assist the homeless directly across the street from a liquor store doesn't seem well thought out. Well, thank you.
Okay. Deborah, then Nuriel. Deborah, are you able to unmute yourself?
Okay, I want to know why my neighborhood. I wanted to know, you have not yet said how we, the stakeholders on 31st, that would be in my backyard, will be secured. There are schools, elementary schools, Head Starts, and daycares. There are churches that our elderly walk back and forth to. But you have not said, with the over impact of putting more people into my neighborhood, that we are going to be secure here. You haven't stated that yet. There are other places that could be. We have enough people here with the other low income housing that's all around, and we're fighting those crimes now. So why put this in my neighborhood?
Nuriel.
Thanks, Laura. So my name is Nuriel. I'm one of the members also on the governing board for the neighborhood council here for UNNC, and specifically serve on the homelessness committee. And, just sort of wanted to relate at least some of our experiences. We did walk through about a month ago in this area, as the committee does. And, just sort of wanted to hold space for members of the community, because I know we're talking a lot about the community and members of the community, but for folks who are not here in this meeting. And so, one gentleman we met with stuck out in particular. The gentleman's been chronically homeless for over a decade. When we came up to check in on him, he was actually sweeping his alley to make sure it was clean. And, he grew up right in this neighborhood. He went to school in this neighborhood. His family's in this neighborhood. He actually has a job cleaning up the bar off hours down the street, but that's his job. So his job's in the neighborhood. And he's been offered permanent supportive housing several times, but always in different parts of town. And for him, he's not willing to leave his community. He's not willing to leave his neighborhood. This is his neighborhood, and we're in dire need for more units here. So folks like him can stay near their neighborhood, can stay near their work. For him, he's I think probably in his 50s or 60s. To completely start a whole new life elsewhere is really not tenable. And for him to find permanent supportive housing, he needs to be nearby here. And I'll relate that most of the people we met and we meet in our neighborhood have been here for a long time. This is their neighborhood too. So as we're talking about the community, I know, the HPOZ, the work that's gone into it, the strength of the community we have, people who have been here for a long time, invested in the community. There's also people in this, that aren't here at this meeting who I think would identify themselves as community members and who I think this building would help serve. So at least to try to put a little bit of their voice here as well, I can see potential benefits to this project going out.
Thank you. So I want to point out it's 10 of 8. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hands. No one else should raise their hand. Carissa would be the last person. And I have other people here to present other projects. So next is Dane. Dane, are you?
Yes, hi, thank you. So I live on 31st as well. So just a couple points. I think there's an awful lot of questions that have been asked tonight that have had very little, if no answer to. There's been a lot of, I don't have the answer to that right now. And these are important questions that need to be figured out. So I'd like to just call that out. Secondly, I'd like to call out as someone who had gone to rehab for alcoholism, the last place I would ever put any place like this would be across the street from a very sketchy liquor store. And thirdly, yeah, I think the HPOZ has done an amazing job of like keeping this community what it's supposed to be. And what you're asking is basically for a free pass to put something up that, like everybody's mentioned, is way too tall, is way out of scale for the neighborhood. It goes against everything that's been worked on for over a decade. So I think that we have done our part to help, but I think at this point, there's other positions and other places in this community that make more sense for this. Again, there's a liquor store across the street. Thank you.
Okay. Steve, can you do 2 minutes?
I'm going to try.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you to our presenters, our guests. I want to push back a little bit on some of the things that have been said. First, I'll voice support for my neighbors and what they've brought to the meeting tonight, which I think is grounded in the reality of where we live. The first thing I want to address is the statement that the 6 stories are allowed. Well, they may be allowed outside of a historic preservation zone, but I challenge the architects to come back to this meeting with an answer to the question of the HPOZ code. That's the governing code for this neighborhood, which specifically states that you must consider the impacts of the demolition to the essential form and integrity of the historic character of its surrounding built environment. That's the code that you're responsible to, not a zoning code that exists outside of the HPOZ. Second point, the massing and height of this project are inconsistent with the overall character of our neighborhood and the historic streetcar commercial frontage on Jefferson. That's been noted, and I want you to think about that as you address the HPOZ ordinance, which is the governing ordinance of the plan and the neighborhood. And then finally, I think this is probably the most important. The justification for the building's massing and height is that it will be used to address the homeless crisis. Our city and state must absolutely address this issue. However, it is unclear, and you have not explained, how this building will accomplish the goal, as the proposed small single units are inadequate for families or single parents with 2 or more children, who are actually the most at risk of the homeless. And so if you're trying to do a good deed for the homeless, which I am totally in support of, let's really do a good deed for the homeless and make sure that homeless families have a place to live. So the reality of the situation is you're building small warehousing of homeless people, and the goal is actually failed in that it doesn't even meet your reason for being, which is housing the most at-risk homeless. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if it's Chris or Demetrius, but
it's Chris.
Okay, and again, 5 minutes to 8.
Okay, very quickly. First, I want to acknowledge that the goals of Mr. Patel are admirable, and his commitment is obviously long-standing. I think the architects have done a credible job with what the conditions they were asked to design for. But again, the height and massing of this comes in the door way out of scale. And many of the other projects we have on our perimeters of our HPOZs, they might go to 4 stories, but step down at the rear to 2. So they're at scale with the 2-story residences behind on the other side of the alley. And I think if you could reassess the mass and the density of this building and come in with something that was more like, there's a 3-story apartment building on the one elevation right adjacent. If your Jefferson front was 4 stories and you step down to 2 to the rear, I think there might be a much more greater acceptance. But I agree with all the prior speakers that the mass and the scale is out of place. The purpose is highly supported. I disagree with the previous speaker. I don't think this is warehousing. Single unit studios with separate kitchens and bathrooms are quality housing, but the scale, I think, is the real, thorn in everyone's claw. But if you can, within your economics, consider downsizing the mass, it would be something that I think would engender a lot more support. Thank you.
Okay, Keo. Wait a minute, Keo. However, it's to be pronounced.
Hello.
He keeps telling me it's like meow.
It's like meow with a K. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for the time. As a person who works in public service, I appreciate the goal and wanting to help because, this is what I do every day for almost 20 years. But let's not be blinded by the money that's behind public service. I know what it's like to keep names enrolled so that we can get government money. And so the lack of answers around why this building is 6 stories and why there are so many units, we do know why. It's because the money behind it. So let's not pretend that people are not getting paid, first of all. Second, as a person who has my own real estate business, I know what it means to crunch numbers. So coming here tonight without your numbers and not knowing your occupancy, it's ridiculous. That's the number one thing we look at in real estate. How much occupancy? What are my numbers? Is it going to work? So you already do know if this is going to work or not, and simply not sharing it. And you started the presentation talking about how you wanted to be a part of the community. So I would invite you to go to the website, our website, www.historicjeffersonpark.org, and ask yourself where this building belongs in that website that represents this neighborhood. So please go ahead and do that before returning. And finally, my concern, because I do live on 31st Street, is the parking. 10 parking spaces for this many units, even though it may be allowable, is not appropriate. How will you control the parking of all the cars for each unit, in addition to friends and visitors that are coming in and bringing the parking? Where are they going to park? So that is a big concern. Thank you very much.
Okay, Teresa, then Carissa.
Thank you, Laura. I recognize our time constraints. I have just 2 short questions, so if you'll indulge me. Mr. Patel, have you or are you creating supportive housing developments in other parts of the city? And if so, can you tell us where they are?
Not at this point in time. This is the only project I got going on.
Okay, and then my last question is for you, Laura. Do you know off the top of your head about how many similar types of units, supportive housing units, have been built in the UNNC in the past 5 to 10 years?
I can tell you off the top of my head that we've had about 1,500 total units approved, most of which are either built or under construction. Half of those are affordable, but many fewer are for homeless. Sarah, who's one of our guests, might have a clearer answer, but we have 32 on Washington. Path has a brand new building on Montclair. The 2 abode buildings that are about to open are not serving a homeless population, but the Path also has a building at 4th and Washington, and just completing construction, Crenshaw and Pico is one more. So we don't have a lot of, right in the UNNC footprint, we don't have a lot of permanent supportive housing yet constructed. But having said that, we have a lot more than almost any other part of town.
Okay,
I mean,
great.
you know, in other words, back to the fair share. I mean, I'm going to let Carissa speak, and then I do have a zoning comment. Teresa, were you done? I'm sorry.
Yes, those are my two questions. Thank you.
Carissa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm going to just reiterate some concerns that have already been stated, or, you know, I have several concerns. I also live on 31st Street. And then there's just a concern that we have 8 low-income developments within a mile, as well as 2 supportive housing developments. So I am slightly concerned for the warehousing of these populations in low-income neighborhoods, like institutionalizing this problem through segregation. So I'm just expressing that concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just from a zoning perspective, the actual underlying zone on Jefferson has a height district of 1 VL, which is a maximum of 3 stories or 45 feet. State law, and this is generic, does allow additional stories for 100% affordable housing. But in theory, historic districts have been carved out. So it's this sort of non-discussion that's been not going on within the city of Los Angeles. There was a successful negotiation between the California Preservation Foundation and other preservation advocates statewide to carve out historic districts from some of the requirements of the new housing laws, but it doesn't seem to be automatically being applied here in Los Angeles. So that's a broad comment. I understand that KFA has done research and said that 6 stories is allowed. I don't know that it makes sense to max out what's allowed. 0 parking is allowed. I don't know that it makes sense for any project to have 0 parking. And the other thing that I think we're learning is that many people who are homeless, maybe not this particular homeless population, but many people who are homeless are living in their cars, and that's their last possession. So they may not want to move to a building if it requires that they give up their cars because it's a possession. So Karen, we are so out of time. So I don't know if you've been taking really good notes.
I have
we will
been
share the
taking
recording
a ton
with
of
you.
notes. So
Okay.
no, we really appreciate this opportunity to present to you. We know this is a consult, and you know, we're really, you know, it's great to hear all the passion from these residents and how much you care about your neighborhood and your community. And you know, I'm a Los Angeles native. I love this city. I love this community. So no, we're just really happy to be part, and I know we're out of time, so thank you so much for having us.
And I was going to say, for clarity, because there were some numbers that we worked for 10 years and we've had the HPOZ for 10 years. So it's really a 20-year thing, not a 10-year thing, if I'm saying that right. So, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
Laura, I just want to say thank you also, Karen, and echo what Karen said. You know, our intent growing up in the community for the last 40 plus years is to see how we can help, but I hear everybody loud and clear. I am going to request a follow-up sit down with KFA and see where we can go with this thing. You know, but at the end of the day, there is such a big need for housing at every level, whether it's the homeless side of it or the market side of it or the workforce side of it or the other side of it. There's just such a big demand for housing. And, you know, it is on these times we also, as a small family, as developers, listen to the experts that are involved in this thing. So I truly appreciate the comments. Thank you very much. They're not falling on deaf ears is what I will tell you that at this point in time. And hopefully we get to sit down and further discuss this project.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, now apologies to Sarah, but you're up, and and I'm going to make you. Am I making you a
Jonathan?
Okay, I'll make Jonathan.
Yeah.
So Sarah,
Thank
you'll
you.
talk. Well,
Aye.
Sarah, but did you want to present that other little piece, or shall I? You
About
have
the
a
parking?
background. Your one-page backgrounder on the apartment. Oh, that you sent to the council office.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick tee up and then Jonathan has the visuals.
Okay.
So I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to join your meeting tonight. I'm Sarah Letts. I'm the Executive Director of Hollywood Community Housing. We develop and operate affordable housing. 4 to 5 years ago, maybe it was 6, I don't know. Time goes by so
more
fast.
than 4.
More than 4 or 5.
More than 4. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. So we attended many UNNC meetings with our architect and to develop the design for Gramercy Place apartments. And during those meetings, we heard from many community members that adding ground floor commercial would help to activate Washington Boulevard. So that's what we did. We added about 2,400 square feet of commercial right on the corner of, it faces Washington, and the side street right there is Gramercy. And so today I want to introduce you to the Rediscover Center. We're hoping it'll work out for this nonprofit to become the tenant of this space. And with that, I would like to introduce you to Jonathan Bajour. He is the Executive Director of the Rediscover Center.
Hello, I'm just waiting to get screen sharing, but to introduce myself.
Well, I thought I had done it, but I think
you
I
got
hit
Sarah
instead.
But, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you. Let's see if I can get this going. Rediscover Center is a arts education nonprofit focused on sustainable materials. I thought I might show just a 1-minute video to introduce us. You see kind of what we're doing. And hopefully that will come through. So we're about a 20-year-old, is that playing?
Well, it's playing, but did you enable voice before you started sharing?
No, I'm just talking over it.
Okay.
So we're a 20-year-old organization. Currently, we've got a center open in Venice and do programs throughout LA County. We use recycled materials and put those in kids' hands, teaching them about sustainability and creativity at the same time. We go into schools. We work with a wood shop. We do programs in libraries and at community events. And we operate what we call a maker space, which is a place where kids can be imaginative, they can tinker, they can make. We provide the tools and the materials, and it's kind of what you might have had in another generation. Kids might have a garage full of junk that they can just tinker with and play with. In many households in LA today, space is crunched and you don't have access to that kind of resource. We provide that resource to thousands of kids at a time. I'll pull up just a couple slides about the project we are planning with HCHC. Gramercy Place Apartments is this wonderful opportunity from our perspective to expand our services into central LA. Marina, I think you've got your sound still on.
About my retirement today, I talked to Sabrina.
Thanks. And we are planning over the coming 6 months to take the existing commercial space that was built out in that facility and add in makerspace functionality to run our mix of classes, camps, open studios, workshops, and use that as a base of operations to go out into the schools and communities within about a 5-mile radius of that location at Gramercy and Washington. Let me just show a couple more slides about what
we haven't seen any of your slides yet, Jonathan.
Yep. Sorry, you should have just seen the video so far. Aiming to really provide a resource that isn't here in the community currently. There is something called with the same name of Makerspace that just opened at the Koreatown branch of LAPL. That's oriented towards adults and really more of a business center with kind of a green screen and electronic resources. What we like to do is get just materials into kids' hands, get them being creative, and bridge that space where they started off as 3, 4, 5-year-olds just ready to explore the world, excited about everything. And we work with them primarily in elementary school and middle school to keep that sense of excitement while they're building skills towards potential careers in engineering or construction or fabrication or the arts. So we're seeing this center as a place where makers of all ages will be coming together. We're providing tools that people can't afford to have in their own homes, shops, or even crafting facilities, where we'll have elementary school kids coming in for workshops and field trips, and we'll be going out to schools in the area, working with recycled materials, making small and large sculptures together. It'll be a center for entrepreneurs, for adult makers who are looking for resources to get started, perhaps with a micro business or just to follow a passion of their own. For a place where youth can come together and build something larger than themselves. One of our core programs is called a Tinkering Camp. And in a week, we teach a group of youth how to work with power tools, and then they build a room-sized installation art piece, maybe a giant Hogwarts castle, or a working, moving robot unicorn from outer space kind of thing, whatever the kids come up with. We're really helping them to explore their creativity at a scale that they wouldn't have thought was possible. Those are lessons that they can take on in confidence to just about anything. And it's a place where we'll be doing job readiness skills for folks, particularly young adults who are coming out of challenging economic backgrounds, have had justice system involvement, maybe immigration status issues, where they can get vocational skills on working with tools, potentially for careers in, again, construction or fabrication, or in art education. And we draw our seasonal staff for our summer camp from our vocational training programs. So it's a place where we're hoping to see intergenerational transfers as well. Folks who have a craft that they have made maybe for years out of their own recycling bin or scraps around the house, teaching that to youth. We do exhibitions of community practitioners, art practitioners, folks who don't necessarily think of themselves as artists, and we're elevating those into viewing it as art and as a valuable craft. So we'll be opening within the commercial space already built into Gramercy Place apartments, using those sustainable materials that we collect from local businesses and households that donate to us, so that we can use recycled materials and overlay all of our classes with environmental messaging. A wood shop in that space, crafting areas, and expecting groups of up to 50, particularly for the school groups that would visit. And then to use those beautiful windows that HCHC built into this facility as a display for exhibits of art created by community members.
Okay. I see a hand is already raised. Is that okay? Can we start with questions at this point?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Demetrius or Chris, I don't know who it is.
It's Chris again. I want to ask first and foremost, are all of these programs free to the public, or are they classes and workshops and summer programs that are fee to the users? That's my first question. And the second question is, what is your staffing ratio to the 50 kids? And then for parking, I know that there's a certain but limited amount of parking that was set aside for that commercial use. What percentage would be staff, and how would drop off and pickup be for young children? Because unfortunately, the city has red striped the curb in front of that commercial space, even though on the planning discussion areas, the community was told that would be an open for short-term drop-off pickup for, say, a restaurant or food service. So how would traffic, because young children need supervision and transportation, et cetera. So if you could answer those questions, thank you.
Sure. I'll start with the first two about what's happening in the programs. All of our programs have a free track. Some of them also do have a fee for service track. So I mentioned a summer camp. Every single camp we run has a track that is free for income qualified students, and in some cases other qualifications as well, based on the grant funding that we have attached to that program. Some programs are just free to the public, period. Exhibitions, open studios, community events. We hope potentially to be doing some outdoor events. There's a little plaza that was built into the space right in front of Gramercy Place Apartments, where we could be having some tented free art activities on a regular basis, as well as many of the things that we do offsite. We're at farmers markets or libraries. All of those are free events. In terms of staffing, depending on what set of tools and activities we're doing, we've got staffing ratios anywhere from 1 to 20 if we're just teaching a class, and we've got perhaps parent chaperones that are coming in with that, or a school group coming in, down to 1 to 4 when we've got the full tool set. So we'll have 1 staff person for every 4 kids. When we do those programs, we limit the overall attendance in the room. We'll have more like 30 students with 7 or 8 staff around. There are, let's see if there's, for parking out on that block, yes, we would love to talk about how to make that work best for the flow that we expect for drop-offs for our camps and classes, as well as making sure that we're balancing off with other uses of Washington Boulevard. I know that there are some other organizations that have groups coming through that might be on a similar schedule. We'll make sure to coordinate with them that we're not clogging up the streets at the same time by being there at the same time.
Okay, I'm going to just jump in. I'm hoping you're going to work out something where you're not clogging up the street, whether
Correct.
or
No,
not other
exactly.
organizations
Yeah.
have an event.
Yes. Yeah, a typical our larger programs. The largest program we do is a by attendance is a school field trip. So that'll be a single bus pulling up. We can handle up to 50 kids in a space this size. So that's 1 bus, and a loading zone on Washington Boulevard would be appropriate. It looks like.
Okay. First of all, I'm just going to say that John, the chair of this committee, has just arrived. And hi, John. And Donna, you're next. And John, we're talking about the Gramercy Apartments. Donna, you're up.
Hi. It looks like a really nice program. It'd be great if you're actually using families within the area. My concern is, as what was brought up by the other speakers, parking and a method to be able to have parents come, pick up, drop off, whatever works. Right now, we have a lovely program at Manhattan and Washington, just up the street, that I am on a mission about. And I'm sure you've heard of the Debbie Allen Dance Academy. We are now under siege in the community with valet cars up and down a street, in the middle of the street, blocking the entire block of between 18th and Washington. It's outrageous, and I think you really need to consider that. The neighborhood is super impacted by not having enough parking. Multi-units run the space, and it's very difficult right now. I think it's a wonderful program. I'd love to have it at Benny Potter, but I can't see how that's going to work at that space. I know they have a lovely space to use. It would be great, but just consider that issue. Right now, we are constantly with the police and the neighborhood prosecutor regarding the dance academy up the street. Thank you.
And to amplify that, what they're doing is double parking on both sides of Manhattan Place, leaving a single lane down the middle. And the dash bus goes down there, among other things. And people take a speedy right turn from Washington to northbound Manhattan Place and have to screech to a halt because there's either a car coming at them directly, or because of the double parking, somebody's pulling. It's just a mess. So It'd be worse on Washington, and I live on Gramercy, so I'm going to say I'm going to watch this closely. Sarah, I know that Amazing Grace works with the church one more block west, and with a parking lot, which could also be a drop-off area. So I don't know if you've talked to them, because in other words, maybe a good drop-off area, if it's a big group of people coming, could be enter the church parking lot, drop your kid off, exit the church parking lot, but there's somebody from your program to walk the kids back to the program. I don't know, I mean, something that would work for the neighborhood would be great.
That's a good idea, Laura. I mean, twice we've rented parking from the church, for a modest price. So that's a really great idea. If there was a reason to have a lot of kids arrive all at once, that's a real logical suggestion.
And I want to just make sure that everyone's understanding the scale of our typical programs. On a typical day, we'll have between 10 and 15 kids in an afternoon program, weekdays. On the weekends, between, again, 10 and 20 families over the course of a full day, only 3 or 4 at a time. We want to be able to give, once they're in the space, the kind of the workspace that they want, that they need to expand out that vision of what they're making. So we don't crowd them in. The large groups really are only when we've got that school group coming in and when our summer camp comes up. And with summer camp, we've got staggered arrival times. So of those 30 kids coming in, it's over a course of about an hour. And we are currently operating that at our Venice location. Similar perspective, actually also on Washington Boulevard, but in the 12,000 block instead of the 2,000 block. And similar setup of commercial street with metered parking and adjacent to a side street. And the 3 or 4 metered spots right in front of our space on the block have been perfectly adequate for pickup and drop off for operating that camp for the last 10 years.
Okay. Are there any other questions? So Sarah, we should talk about that darn red curve as well. It really seems to me, even just based on what Jonathan just said, I think we really need to talk to the city again, about moving the bus stop to the other side of Gramercy, unless that would be too difficult for your tenants. Are they able to?
That would be okay. So Chris is right. I mean, her memory is accurate, but we have a whole new administration, so I'm starting over. And
for the third time.
And so we'll pursue this. But when I was exchanging emails with CD10, the new staff at CD10, they said the main reason for the red curb is to serve the metro bus stop. So to remove the red striping, we do have to find a way to move the metro bus stop, and that would not be a problem for our tenants. That would be fine.
Right. Well, the metro bus stop used to be on the east side of Gramercy. And the neighbors, myself included, this is decades ago, pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to move it to where it is now, because at the time the liquor store was a nuisance operation. So we needed there not to be, quote, a bus stop because I'm waiting for a bus was a reason not to be arrested for loitering. So that has changed as well. So, we had the bus stop moved, so I don't know why we can't get it moved again back to where it was originally. And would they then remove a lot of that red, do you think?
I think they would. That's what they've said in writing, that's the reason for the red is the metro bus stop. So I think they would.
Right. And then for an art show, because you mentioned having I guess it's a maker show. Would you be using the community room at the same place and not just your workspace?
Yeah. So in the current plans, a few times a year, we would have a larger community event that includes a reception in the community room, as well as the exhibit in the makerspace.
And my last question, because I see nobody else's hand is raised, will you are you considering also creating some sort of program for the seniors who live in the building?
Yes. It went by a little fast on the slides, but we have this plan both for offering the space as a community space for anyone in the neighborhood who wants to come in and have free open hours. We'd have a tool training class and certification that you're using those tools safely. And then weekly hours, a schedule where you can come in and work on projects of your own, with a particular invitation to the residents of Gramercy Place Apartments. And the hope, knock on wood, that out of that group of regular users of the makerspace for their personal use, will be working or identifying folks who want to volunteer within the programs to work with the kids, to pass on their own skills and special projects that they make that they'd like to teach. And we've got teaching artists experienced in helping to translate that and to develop curriculum out of it that we can take into the schools. That's the dream.
Okay, so Sarah, I'm sad that we won't have a restaurant, but I understand that it was proving not viable. And just for everybody else to know, it's not just Sarah's been trying, but quite a few of us have been talking, myself included. Ethan, of UNNC's former treasurer, who works, with some restaurant people. Like the idea was really glorious, but what we're being told, and Sarah, you can supplement what I'm saying, but what we're hearing is that a lot of the really good nonprofit-y kind of restaurants, and some of the I wish we could make a profit restaurants, were asking the owner of the building to build out the restaurant and let them rent for free. So it just obviously wasn't viable. Is that right?
That's right. So it was that. So established restaurants. Every Table was the one where they basically said, you're going to have to subsidize us. You need to build it out and subsidize. Like,
well, they're the ones who told you that, but then With Love Market and Cafe and Homeboy Homegirls also told others of us the same thing. So.
Yeah, and then we tried with Stuart Eubanks, the Who's Hungry, the Caribbean. We really tried. So there probably were 4 different community development financial institutions that with Stuart, we tried to figure out the financing and we couldn't figure it out. So we did make an extra effort to try to work it out with a local businessman who's currently, I think, in the farmer's market. Yeah.
Chris or Demetrius, you have a question?
I just want to let Sarah know that should this project go forward, I will work to get with you to help move that bus stop and get that red curb gone and maybe metered parking, whatever it takes, so that there is a working curb drop off for safe pickup and delivery. So Sarah, Laura can give you my contacts.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And she lives right around the corner.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Well, you're welcome, Dan. Okay. Jonathan, didn't you have one more little thing to share? An invitation?
Oh, thank you. Yes. So if you like what you heard and you want to hear more about how this project is going to go forward and what Rediscover is and what we do, our 20-year experience working with youth, we're holding a meeting next Tuesday, October 25th at 2 p.m. at the Gramercy Place Apartments community room. And we'll have some samples of the tools and activities that we do, some light refreshments, and I'll give a longer presentation on who we are and what we do. And I will put a link to the invitation for that, the contact information for that event in the chat, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. And for everyone, and especially those who might be new to us or to Zoom, the chat itself you can save, so you could get, keep the link. And what you do to do that is you go to the chat And there's three little dots on the right. Once you pull up chat, you'll see where you could write a message. You can also see to the right of that three little dots. And if you click more, you'll see something called Save Chat. And that will allow you to, among other things, get this invitation, as you can see now in the chat. Okay. So I ask again, are there any other questions or comments, or should we move on to our next agenda item? Just moving on to the next agenda item. Thank you so much. I'm going to share the screen again because everyone's probably forgotten after an hour and a half what the next agenda item is. So I'll bring that back up. It's number 6, and it's further discussion regarding the administration of character residential overlay districts and other CPIOs, which are another alphabet soup for community plan implementation origin overlay. The main reason we put this back on the agenda is that we have already filed our comments about the administration of CPIOs and specifically this case that's moving forward to the Planning Commission. But ironically, in the last 2 weeks, we've, in our community of West Adams, so Nandesy as well as UNNC, there have been 3 different situations where permits are being given in these not HPOZs, but still historic areas over what used to be called over the counter. So it's now called an internet permit. And usually you're not supposed to be given an internet permit when you're within any sort of overlay, because an internet permit does not create what is called a clearance sheet for the different departments to sign off on the application. So we have a situation like right now active at 1829 Gramercy. So just a few properties away from this project, where a contributor to the Angeles Vista character residential overlay was granted an internet permit to change out all of its windows. And it is an error, and the planning department's written building and safety to say it's an error, but it's really difficult to get that undone. So really it's just an update unless people want to yak about it, because we have written our letter. And John, do you think I should be posting our letter here today, or it's about 6 or 7 pages, so I don't know. What do you think?
Sure. Like I've been at the forefront of this issue, so you know a lot more about it than I do. So
yeah, but do you think I should post the letter? Or
sure.
Am I torturing people by posting?
Well, I think if we could just show the exhibit of it, I think that'd be good.
Right. Let me see if I can find it. Oh no, I can't find it. Okay, I will do that in a minute because I haven't clicked it open. All right. And the other example, which is not within our area, but I just wanted to share the example at the Adams, Vermont, Menlo, the grocery store Ralph's. That's a project that was paid for $7 million taxpayer money, but it also involves a National Register district on Menlo. So the project that was approved long ago and far away required a 17-foot buffer on Menlo, and it's within the North University Park Design Review Board. So it's a specific plan with a preservation overlay. And again, a permit was issued to Ralph's to chop down all the trees, get rid of the landscaping, expand their parking lot all the way to Menlo, and without a clearance sheet. So that's the kind of stuff that's going on. And I am still looking for that letter, because when you do it the way I'm doing it now, it's upside down and backwards on my computer. Okay. I'm hearing just such dead silence. I want to be sure that I'm still with everybody. Okay, can you see the letter?
It's coming. Yes.
Okay. So, oh, and welcome to our new brand, our new logo, everybody. This is our new letterhead. Pretty, huh? So basically, the first whole page was just this, salutations and who we are. But essentially, the city planning department explained that it is amending portions of the South Los Angeles Community Plan, CPIO, to strengthen neighborhood stability and to promote the preservation of affordable housing. However, first issues that we address is that they're not extending those strengthening provisions to all of the existing South LA CPIO areas, but rather just the little bit of an expansion. And they do not address issues that we, UNNC, had identified related to affordable housing, historic preservation, and a process of publicly identifying, quote, eligible historic properties. NANDC has, which is North Area Neighborhood Development Council, has been running a task force for a couple of years, and it meets tonight, actually. And they propose to change the ordinance so that an eligible historic resource would just be any structure that's 60 years or older. We voted to support that concept. And what that would mean is any structure 60 years or older would require an evaluation before it was demolished or majorly changed, right? It wouldn't prevent the demolition, but it would require its own evaluation. And that is because the current language is not working. The Planning Commission and the City Council adopted language to use Survey LA or other historic resources surveys. However, essentially, the Office of Historic Resources has not allowed the use of any other survey, and Survey LA itself is woefully inadequate. It's out of date. It skipped entire blocks. So it's just not working. So that was the core of that page. We're requesting that the language be for all of the South LA and not just a little portion. It's important that they're adopting anti-displacement measures, and tenant protections, but again, they're limiting it to a small portion and not all of South LA, and that seems, well, I know I'm being recorded, so I have to be careful. That doesn't seem to be based in any sort of way to protect the vast majority of people who are experiencing displacement. And then we talked about a little bit about replacing RSO units. This is a position we adopted some time ago, that RSO units should be replaced along with additional affordable housing. We also would like the South LA CPIO to be updated to reflect the city's growing concerns regarding our tree canopy, which are motions that City Council has passed recently. And then we get to the background. We've written this letter starting at this point, starting at page 4 through 7. This is the 4th time that we've written the same, more or less, the same letter. And it's about how staff simply is not administering the program the way the policy planners created the program and had meetings with all of us, the community members, to make sure that this program, HPOZ Light, was to be implemented as if they were HPOZs, except without a board and without a preservation plan, to use the Secretary of Interior standards. But the people, the side of the staff that handles cases, don't seem to have enough training, and they have way too many cases to administer properly. And we've had a rotating series of staff planners. So this whole letter is in the agenda packet, just to be clear. So I'm not reading it out loud. So our community has been keen to both create affordable housing opportunities, new housing opportunities, protect tenants, and to protect the character of our community, its historicness, and as well just the amenities, the character of the streetscapes. The CPIO staff has cleared demolitions, even though there was not an approved project. The CPIO says you can't do it, but it happens anyway. So that's another issue. It's not being coordinated with the redevelopment plans, which still exist. and again, as mentioned, now with COVID, but it seems to be even more recent, the city building and safety's computer system is allowing these over-the-counter kind of online internet permits. So that's what this whole letter is. We kind of were a little mean, but saying that CPO staff ought to be taking Historic Preservation 101 along with Planning 101 for everyone, not just us, but for them too. So that might not have been the nicest thing we've ever said, but essentially we need this to be administered differently. So it's in the agenda packet. And the one thing that I think what we should take away from here tonight, because I've been now hearing this just in the last 2 weeks from lots of different people, including some planners, that at the top of the planning department, they have resisted now for 4 years, changing ZMIS, which is and John can maybe explain a little better, but it's the one place that has every planning, everything for each individual property in a single space. For redevelopment plans, even if they have historic preservation components, for the specific plans related to historic preservation, for our character residential overlay zones, if you go on ZMIS and you see the words historic preservation, yes or no, it still says no. And building and safety, that's where they look to see if a permit's okay, yes or no. It needs to say yes. And I'm being told that at the highest levels of the planning department, they purposely want it to say no instead of yes. I don't understand why. It just creates so much more work where everybody's scrambling to correct things. So I feel that UNNC should be really advocating, but not tonight because it is 8:45, but really advocating to say we need to change ZMIS, have historic preservation, click yes, and then a fourth column added for all of these unusual overlays where it just says contact city planning, but at least it would say yes. So when building and safety is looking at it, they'd see a yes. And that's really important. Okay, I talked too much. John, what do you think? I know, it's like weeds, it's weeds.
Yeah, it is. That's where I get, and it all makes sense. So I think it's all reasonable. I think it's
Right. Well, I think I need to bring a proposal that's only one paragraph long to the next Planning and Zoning Committee to also put on the governing board agenda so we can advocate to our heart's content on that one topic related to ZMIS. Because the rest of this has already been, mailed, as it were, emailed in. So has anybody else had any such experiences that they wish to share, or are we just thankful that only Laura has to dig into these weeds? Hearing nothing. Hearing nothing, I guess we can move on. Yeah, okay. Seeing nothing, seeing no hands, hearing nothing. The next item on the agenda is follow up to previous cases, ENS, and old business. And John, I'm gonna guess you have something to say about a hearing that's coming up that I should walk away even though I know about it.
oh boy, I don't
So I'll
have
walk
that.
away for 2 minutes.
I don't have that information handy. It's coming up
Oh,
soon.
I can give you a date.
Okay, is it October 27?
Yes, it is. And now I'm
Okay.
walking away.
CPC is, sorry, I don't have that at my fingertips. CPC will have it. We mentioned this at the governing board meeting. The CPC, City Planning Commission, will be hearing Gramercy likely for the final time. They've put it off since their last hearing, I think it's in March. So this is 1848 Gramercy. It's the 7-story building on Gramercy, a block or a parcel off of Washington Boulevard that has the 12 waivers and the no setbacks and the no open space. And and 3 affordable units in exchange for 30 market rate units. So we took a strong stance. We keep reaffirming it. We reaffirmed it again at our UNNC governing board meeting on the 1st of the month. And so we'll be there again to reiterate our stance, and we'll see what the CPC says. There'll likely be a lot of input from the city attorney based on state affordable housing laws, which prohibits any diminishment of density on a site, regardless of how the developer is configuring it. So please attend that meeting. It will be in the morning. I believe it starts at 10, but we will send out a blast saying when that meeting is. It will be online. It will be Zoom. That's it. The 27th, which is next Thursday. Laura, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I'm coming back.
Lucky years.
Well, no, I was talking to David.
Mm.
Or he was yelling if you didn't all hear already. So, okay. Any other old business, previous cases, ENS? Okay. I'm not seeing any hands.
That's it.
Okay, that's it. So for those who want to save the chat again, you just pull up chat on your, click on chat at the bottom of the screen, pull it up, and to the right of where you could type a message, you'll see 3 dots, and you can hit save the chat. Okay.
Thanks,
And
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
And thank you, John, for jumping in at the end. So I don't like to just rudely kick everybody out of this Zoom room, but I'm going to end the meeting in 30 seconds. Give you time to save the chat if you wanted to. And thank you, everybody, very much. Just watching the clock. When it ticks 8:48, I'm turning this off.